boom.
Did you hear any of this?
Just the takeaways that
I mean, I hear you clicking buttons. I don't hear
get
music.
out there, get on the side of the road. It is the full experience. Opening weekend back where it belongs with the people.
We've been
so
trying to come up with a description of our show for a while now, and I think
today,
we're
trip
close.
into the Flemish Ardennes as well, and they're on Europe.
Wow. Okay. We're going to go dry this time. I don't understand what's going on. It should, in theory, all of this stuff should patch through, and you should be able to hear. I know that the conversation might
and it's
start
a sunny day.
with
if you're
bikes,
hoping
but
for sort of...
Alrighty.
So stay tuned.
Be disappointed.
And you don't hear that
at
all. Very soon. Bye-bye.
Back to the tailwind, the opposite to yesterday.
Nope.
Really.
I just hear you and me chatting away.
Really?
Something's amiss.
We've been trying to get the show started for a little bit, and just working through all of these technical difficulties. So.
Hey, perhaps it just needs a little lube.
Yeah.
A little Phil Woods. Is that the brand? The green tube Phil Woods lube?
Phil Wood. Yeah, that's grease. Grease. Yep. You wouldn't want to put that on your. I've had people slather stuff on their chains. It's never a good thing. It's never
like a Krispy Kreme.
Yeah. I've had a few customers do motorcycle like chain lube. Have you ever run into that?
No, not myself. No.
That stuff is like it's like the consistency of honey.
Wow, super thick.
Yeah, super thick, and they'll use it on their bicycles every once in a while. You run into that on the bike.
I have seen people heard stories of people putting WD-40 on their chain, which is a big no-no as well. Correct?
I don't know that it's a no-no. I guess that stuff is better than nothing, but it's not really a lubricant. The WD stands for water disbursement.
I learned so much stuff on this podcast.
Well, that's good. Maybe somebody else is learning something as well. Your initial thought about WD-40 was, you never use that on your bike. But then they came out with a line for bicycles. And
yes, they did.
Which, it's really tough to sell that stuff now because you've told people for the longest time you don't want to use WD-40, and now they have a bike line that I don't know if I haven't run into it recently. I wonder if they even do it anymore.
It's really funny you said that. I think they do.
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to fact check myself, but. You're 100% right. Forever and a day, I at some point, someone just like, don't use WD-40. And I was like, okay. But that is really funny. And I think they came out really strong with their bike products. Like I saw it kind of everywhere for a while. Like it was in all my social feeds, and it was like emails. And I don't think I used any of it personally. So I can't speak to the quality and how good it was. I assumed it was pretty decent, but that's funny.
Yeah,
that's like a business school 101 like case study. Like, all right, this brand told people don't spray this on your bike chain. Then they come out with a whole line of bike products. So
yeah, it wasn't so much the brand that said don't use it on your bike. It was like bike shops. That was a common refrain in bicycle shops. You don't want to use WD-40. You want to use a lube. And I think people at home have always used WD-40. A lot of like the home mechanics, your people that weren't maybe real bicycle savvy, because they sold it as kind of a do-all thing, do-all product. So no, I've never really, I've never screamed and yelled about not using it, but there are better products to use. I'm just happy people are making an attempt to do something with their chain, because most people don't touch their chain at all.
This is getting into, this is touching my nerve center. This is touching on so many layers. First of all, I did a quick Google search as you were talking. I was listening to you. And the number one search that came up, I put in something like blah, 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 WD-40 bike chains. And the question was, can I use WD-40 in my bike chain? And the answer, according to this website, which is, looks like a blog or something. Yes, WD-40 can be used and will not damage your bike chain. It is primarily a cleaner, but also a light lubricant that will last best in dry conditions. It's not the best lubricant for riding in wet conditions because it will come off quickly, et cetera, et cetera. So you're right absolutely right, Joe. But I was also say one of my favorite things, actually, how to put it, one of my fantasies is to hand out as I ride on the bike path and I hear these people riding these chains that are just grinding, and you just hear that, that noise, that metallic grinding sound. With it's beyond dry, right? Like this is beyond dry. People have been riding these bikes regularly for years, and they haven't ever put any lube on their chain. And as a cyclist, of course, you just hear that, and you're just like, you want to cover your ears and get away as fast as possible. My fantasy is to ride by them and just spray their chains without them noticing.
Without them noticing is kind of like
just quietly just sneak up.
Yeah. You look like one of those Tour de France riders, like back in the day, where they go down and like tie their shoe while they were racing downhill.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just sneak up on them with the little plastic straw that they put in the cans, the aerosol cans. I'd like to have one of those, just about 6 feet long, and just kind of roll up and just shh. And I wonder if they would even notice, like if their chain just becomes quiet. Like there's nothing more beautiful than a quiet bike.
Yeah, you might scare them. They might think their bike's not working. It's like, oh, what happened?
Or they'll just call the police and be like, "There's some creep like messing with my."
Yeah,
bike.
well, yeah, because you'd be down there by their butt if you were like really trying to do it right. You're like you'd be like,
I'm gonna scratch this whole plan right now.
Yeah, yeah, maybe. Well, with a 6-foot one, you might be able to keep your distance, but.
We're off to a great start with this podcast.
No, we can work. It's something we could do. That is a perfect winter project at the bike shop. That is the kind of thing that you work on traditionally during the off months at a bike shop. At least it used to be. There were all sorts of goofy things like designing the world's big. What would be the dimensions of all the bicycle parts on a mile-high bicycle? That was something that, I had a University of Chicago students working on at some point in the bike shop, calculating.
You're kidding.
Oh yeah, calculating the diameter of the spokes, the size of the spoke nipple, like the spoke holes in the hub, what everything on a mile high, if everything was in proportion, they were doing all the mathematical calculations to figure out how big things would be.
What was kind of the point of this?
Just to kill some time at the bike shop during the winter.
No, the university students. Did you enroll them?
No. They worked at the bike shop. So
they worked at the bike shop. Okay.
Yeah. I was surrounded by very, very educated people.
I was going to say that's one of the best schools around. Those are really smart kids. So.
Yeah. We our shop that's when I worked at Turin Bike Shop. We sponsored the UC Velo Club, and there were two students. There were two graduates of the University of Chicago that I worked with at the bike shop. So
nice.
Yeah. Very way over educated people working with me at a bicycle shop. We were making the same amount of money. Maybe he was making a little bit more than me, but both of us working at the bike shop. So,
I love it.
Yeah.
That's really funny.
And he actually, one of them still went on to work at SRAM. He got in at the ground floor of SRAM.
That sounds like a pretty good gig.
Yeah, he was plucked out of the bicycle shop back in the early days of SRAM. They were, they were a Chicago company, and they were located in downtown Chicago, in a loft in downtown Chicago. And when they had a workshop at the office, but not a full-on bike shop. They didn't have all the frame tools and some other, more serious bike tools floating around there. So they would come down to the bike shop on occasion and do some bicycle work, So we were
very cool.
Yeah, got to see some early SRAM road grip shift, things like that.
Now, I want to talk about RIP. Well, no, it's still around. I was going to say props to grip shifts. I mean, what a great early technology, and it kind of revolutionized cycling. I think that word gets thrown around a little bit too much, but I think it kind of did. But I want to ask about your pronunciation of SRAM. So I always say SRAM, but you say SRAM. You kind of add like this SH sound, like sh, like SRAM. Have you always said it? Have you always said it that way? I've heard a couple of different pronunciations.
I've always said SRAM. It's kind of like swag, you know?
Swag.
I grew up with swag, and I also grew up with SRAM. And although it's SRAM, and I've heard SRAM, you know, I've heard...
You've heard SRAM?
Yeah, oh yeah.
People said SRAM?
Oh yeah, people come into the shop and say SRAM, you know?
I've never heard that.
Oh yeah.
Oh my God, I kind of love that.
SRAM. And a lot of them are actually Eastern European, so maybe they just can't put those two letters together, you know, SRAM. So they'll say SRAM. But I hear that a lot at the shop.
I like it. So I have some news, Joe. I have some news. Do you want to hear my news?
I don't know, Danny. I like the status quo. I like things to be kind of just. I'm really just happy with things kind of like. I like just. It turns out I want normal and just kind of regular. I want an even keel life.
You don't want change? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, go ahead, Danny. One more thing.
I bought Sarah an e-bike.
Oh, wow. Check you out. Really?
Boom.
Wow. Is anything in particular? Is there something like a specific kind of e-bike?
Well, I bought her. So there's kind of a story, but I'll give you the shortened version. And we could talk about more of the details if you like. But the shortened version is, couples riding together can be wonderful. It can also be stressful, and it can be things, and it can be things in between. And I've heard lots of stories. And when I worked at, just for example, Bicycling Magazine, I remember we kind of did like a whole like column or story on like couples riding together, like tips. Sarah, she's really into like yoga. She has a great history of doing yoga. She does hot yoga, which is like a thing, of course, and all this. And, I like yoga as well. But I wanted to kind of get her on a bike basically, and I wanted to do some fun bike rides with her. So we've had some good bike rides, and we've had some where, I want to kind of just ride kind of fast, and she wants to kind of chill. And anyway, long story short, I said, hey, what would you think about an e-bike? And she was like, well, yeah, that sounds like pretty interesting. Tell me more. And so I kind of talked about some of the details. We didn't want to spend 10 grand on an e-bike. We didn't want to spend $500 on an e-bike because, you get what you pay for to some extent. But we ended up buying, a pretty nice e-bike. It's actually one that was highly recommended by several reputable publications, including Bicycling Magazine and some others. But it's a Venton, Aventon.
Okay.
I don't know if you've heard of them, but they have a bike that's pretty popular. It's the Level Commuter is the name of it, which is a funny name. But it is it's like an $1,800 bike. So with tax and whatnot, it was about $2,000. But it's apparently a great bike. I haven't ridden it yet. I haven't checked it out. But it is pretty fast. It goes up to 28 miles an hour, which, as you know, is very, very fast. And has a 40-mile range on a full charge. Obviously, that depends. That will be affected by how much torque or how much power you want to put down.
Yep.
And all these other kinds of things. But it comes with a suspension fork. Comes with rack and fenders, and some of that. But it was highly praised by several publications, and I did some research, and it's obviously it's an e-bike, so it's kind of heavy. So it's not going to be something we're going to be lifting in and out of the apartment every single day. But especially on weekends, we can go out. I'll be on my regular bike, a regular pedal bike. She'll be on the e-bike, and we'll get everything kind of adjusted and get the fitting and everything dialed in. And once we're ready, the idea is we can head out like on a weekend, either head to the lakefront. Obviously, initially that would be more fun, just so we can kind of get used to the bike. But then we can go farther, and we can do up to 40 miles, and that mileage, that range they gave on the website, that I haven't looked hardcore at it yet, but like that could just be if the torque is all the way up. Obviously, if you dial back, you can go farther. But the idea is just we want to ride together. And I've ridden a couple really nice e-bikes, and I have to say they're really, really sweet. Joe, I don't know if you've ridden some nice e-bikes, but they're really, really sweet.
I work on a lot of them, so I don't. I've sold a few, but I do a lot of these days. There are a lot of. I've seen some of the Aventons. I've seen some of the Rad Power bikes. There's Costco sells a popular brand that I see a lot. I actually had one in the shop today. So I'm familiar with them, and I've done e-bike conversions where people bring in their own bike, and we put a motor on them. Some sort of a motor on the bike, either a crank-based motor or a rear wheel. So I've done. It's hard to be a bike shop these days and not encounter some of these some electric bikes, and they're a lot of fun. Now the one thing that I definitely warn everybody getting on an e-bike is that for most people, you will go fast. They'll never have gone as fast on a bike as they will with the e-bike. So most people have never gone 25 miles an hour on a bicycle, and certainly not in traffic, and so you've got to be careful that way, because the bike might go 25 miles an hour, but that person might not have the reflexes to drive a bike that's going 25 miles an hour, and that's something that you really have to be cautious about. I think people get into trouble on mountain bikes, on e-mountain bikes that way, in that they, now they've got this thing and they're able to go way faster than they've ever gone off road, and it's really easy to lose control. So that's the only caveat. That's the only thing that where I would say, be careful with that, and also the power setting that you have it at, because those bikes do, if you're not prepared, it's kind of like clipless pedals, where you have to sometimes you forget, and with the assist, sometimes you forget that you have assist, and when you don't have a motor and you're like, let's say you're in a parking lot setting, or you're somewhere where you're pedaling where you would normally be pedaling very slowly to kind of get around an obstacle. Yeah, those situations with your bike where you're just kind of soft pedaling, or maybe coasting, and then you kind of half step on the pedal just to kind of move your bike around a little bit. With the e-assist, the motor kicks in, so all of a sudden you go, that bike will jerk forward,
Yep.
And so I've seen people. I've had people encounter that right in front of me, in the parking lot, where they're like, "Whoa!" The e-assist. They kind of forget that that's on, or that it's that it kicks in when you start pedaling, and it takes them maybe moves them forward a little quicker than they expected, or maybe sometimes into a stationary object. So, definitely take it easy at the beginning, because there is a little bit of keep it on that number one setting, and because it's fun to play with, because eventually you do 25 miles an hour on a bicycle is fast. It's pretty fast, and people and most people have never gone that fast. It's kind of exciting for the average person. I bet it's like being on a motorcycle or something. So
you're 100% right. I think that's a really great point, and so what I'm going to remind Sarah about. We're going to go out. We're going to go out and do some like chill kind of like initial rides, and maybe go to like the park and go to the lakefront and kind of ride in the grass a little bit, and just do some chill path riding. And yeah, I'm just going to kind of go through some of that. I mean, she kind of already gets it, but it's good to review it. And as you said, like it, you know, I rode one, I think it was a Stromer, Stromer. It was I think they just merged actually. I saw some news headline somewhere, but very high end. I think they were Austrian, a very high end e-bike. That bike was seriously fast. It went definitely over 20 miles an hour. I think 25. If you don't have that experience, you maybe don't respect the speed as much. Because it's not a motorcycle, it's not a moped, it's not a scooter, it's a bicycle.
Yeah.
So you still have to use pedal assist, but that Stromer had so much torque.
Oh yeah.
Like I would I wasn't pedaling hard. I would just, you know, not light, but kind of like light to medium pedaling, and that thing would take off. Like you got to hold on. I mean,
oh yeah.
I'm not kidding. That thing would move. So anyway, I think those are great tips. I'm going to go through all of this, and obviously helmets, all that kind of stuff is necessary. But
yeah, that's cool. That's good news. I think that's you know, the e-bikes have their place for sure. You know, and I welcome them to the market for a lot of people, and like your situation's perfect.
So at first I was a little bit like, I'm not sure. But you know, one of the stories, and maybe we mentioned this on the pod before, but one of the stories that I always loved was there was this pro whose father was a pro himself back in the day, but he you know, his father was slowing down, still super fit and great cyclist, but just not quite as fast as he was, which is pretty natural. And this pro was like, I really wanted to ride with my dad. Like it was such a bonding experience. It was so great. And the e-bike, once he got like a pretty decent e-road bike, which was, you know, relatively light, kind of like a higher end one, they were able to go out on his rides. So the pro was doing like a medium ride, medium intensity, distance ride, whatever. And, you know, that's kind of where his dad maybe wouldn't be able to like hang on and that sort of thing. But the e-bike allowed him to do that. And so all of a sudden they can do these rides together, which I thought was I thought it was amazing. And it just, that story just made me really rethink e-bikes. And I guess this situation with Sarah and me now is kind of like, it's like a version of that. It's like, hey, we can go out, we can do a 30, maybe 40 mile ride, which is a good ride for me. Like I'm just riding a regular bike. Like that's a good ride for me right now. And like she can do it, and it's going to be a good ride for her too, but like much more manageable and realistic. And it's just gonna be fun. So I'm pretty stoked. So that's my big news.
Oh, that's good news. That's good news. Yeah, that'll be that's something fun to look forward to this summer.
So the other part of this news, Joe, this was the first part. The second part is I've had this brilliant epiphany, this revelation, this vision. And that is Sarah and I this is what I'm planning. So I want Sarah and I to go to Ireland this summer and ride our bikes from the northmost point to the southmost point.
I tell you, I think I've seen the team from GCN do something similar to that, where they've like ridden from one side to the other. I don't. Maybe I've seen someone do that.
This is the idea. Call it a midlife crisis. Call it what you will. No, call it what you will, folks. I'm stoked, and I had this insight. And I know a lot of people have done this, but I did like 20 minutes of research on my lunch break today. So I'm pretty stoked, and I want to fly to Ireland. We'll probably rent her an e-bike there, and I'll probably bring my own bike.
Exciting.
And we'll go to Malin Head, which is the northmost tip of Ireland. And by Ireland, just for clarification purposes, I mean the whole island that includes the north. So we'll start from the very tip, and then we'll ride basically down all the way south to Maizenhead. So it's Malin Head to Maizenhead.
Awesome.
Meaning like the whole country. So I'm thinking it's going to happen. I'm really stoked. We're going to fly. Most people do it like, according to the internet, in about 5-6 days. It's not super far. It's under 400 miles. It's not a big country. So it's very, very doable. And some people obviously crush it in one ride and they do all this ultra stuff. But, we're going to have the e-bike, going to have my bike. I think we're going to probably shoot for like 40, 50 miles a day. And then we'll have like a number of days after just to like go out and have fun and do our thing. Something I've always wanted to do. I think I've told you before. I lived in Ireland for a couple summers. I've been there a lot growing up. My parents are from there, so I went there a lot on vacation. But and I've done some racing there, and I did a lot of training and riding around there. But I never did this, point to point. And there's something very romantic about it, like just doing like a point to point ride. Obviously, like Spain would be a different story, such a huge country, but like Ireland is, it's pretty tiny.
It's manageable. Yeah. So are you thinking doing this like what I call credit card touring, where you'll stop at hotels along the way, carry light gear, and then stay at places along the way, right?
That's exactly what we're going to do. You can obviously do all kinds of things. You can do it in many different ways. We want to do it in a way where, we're going to have a couple bags on the bike, nothing crazy. But, those under the saddle bags, which are kind of popular now, they kind of jut out a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you kind of have like a bar bag and maybe like a bag under the head tube, whatever, like just that kind of thing. Like, some spare clothes, some real basics, obviously your pump and your tubes and all this kind of stuff. But like, some Cliff Bars and all that kind of stuff, but pretty minimal.
Yeah,
and that is
light touring, or
light touring.
You'll stop at places and have lunch, and you're not packing a frying pan and a stove with you.
Exactly.
Dude, I totally see that. That's a good way to do it. That's a good way to stay to keep your girlfriend, I think, too. Because I think I think that you have to know what you can get yourself in, what your partner is willing to put up with, because this is your adventure and this is our sport. But when you're bringing somebody along, I think roughing it, it could be hard on a partner,
It's actually a really good point, because you can't assume other people are into or up to what you want to do. So we've been talking a lot about it. We've been spending a lot of time talking about it. At first, I think she was a little bit like, "Wait, what do you want to do?" And I'm kind of like, "Check it out. Here's what we can do." But it's very manageable. And the beauty is we would not be on any schedule. So if we have a day where it's like, I don't know, horrendous rain or crazy winds, or we're just not feeling it or whatever, like we can be like, all right, let's just chill in this little village town for like another day, and we're going to stay in some B&Bs, as they're known in Ireland, and these really comfy homes, typically in these little country spots, like they cook you these big breakfasts and dinners, and like there's a fire and a hearth, and and you could walk around town, catch a little music, all that kind of stuff. But during the day, just do these like rides. And, we're not talking about big mileage. A big day might be like 50 miles. And the reality is, Ireland's it's less than 400 miles top to bottom. So you can do it a couple different ways. But I think it's going to be super fun. And I just love the idea of kind of completing like a point to point. Something I always wanted to do, and I'm like, well, if I don't do it now, when am I going to do it?
Well, I think that's the thing right now, Danny. I think there's a lot of people who have put together a list of things that if they don't do it now, when are they going to do it? And we're kind of a cycling related show, and I think that there are a lot of things on our cycling related list that we haven't done yet. That's one of the big ones. And like for me, there are things that I did that the last time I did them, I didn't think it was going to be the last time. I just thought my life was always going to be, doing those. I thought I'd always be climbing mountains in Spain, and I would always be riding, on those roads. And all of a sudden, 20 years have gone by, and I haven't ridden a bike in those places, or over 20 years in some cases, and And so I have a very similar list right now. You know, I think
very cool.
You know, and your bike, I think you're, you know, I think that's part of the reason why you got a bike and you're riding again. And you know, obviously, it's kind of lit that fire. I think we talked about that before, about how once you get that bike and once you start, you know, it only takes it's only taken 2 or 3 rides for you to now want to ride your bike across Ireland and buy a bike for your girlfriend. I mean, you know, you've gone from 0 to 150. So, congratulations.
I just sweat.
You know, hey man, the same thing happened to me. It's like I put my bike back on the trainer, and before you knew it, you know, it's like I'm looking at you know, the ride in the Pyrenees, you know,
right.
It's a week-long race through the Pyrenees, you know, so
Trans-Epic or something.
Yeah, it's like the Trans-Pyrenaica and some of these epic rides. So it doesn't take much to kind of get the juices going again, and it's fun, man. It's fun. It's, you know, it's good to see that you're doing it, and you know, I think that there are a lot of people out there just in the same boat as we are, you know, kind of rediscovering the sport again, and kind of the last 2 or 3, certainly the last couple of years have given everybody given everybody time to think. Hopefully, you know, you've been able to think and you know, for us, make what I call halftime adjustments, right? You know, halftime life adjustments. And there's only so much time left to pull these things off. You know, hopefully we're alive for a long time, but how many good years do you have where you can get on a bike and ride across Ireland or ride across Spain, or, you know, do some of these kind of challenging things that we hope to do, you know? And that's awesome. And you know, the other thing is that we're also, I think for us, I watch a lot of videos. I watch a lot of these people, frankly, a lot of kids touring on some of these YouTube channels and vlogs and things. And, you know, a lot of them are a lot younger than us. You know, I call them kids, but, you know, they're 20 years younger than us, and they're camping and having a great time. But, you know, I think if you were to try to take your partner, or if I was to try to take my wife and sleep in a tent on the side of the road and convince her that a can of tomato sauce and some pasta was dinner, you know, I would probably be riding by myself, looking for a 25-year-old girl to ride along with me, you know, because let's face it, Danny, I think we're just kind of at a point in our lives where, you know, the good thing is that we're still kind of into the sport and riding and enjoying it, but you know, we're fortunate enough that we can afford to stay in a place and have a shower and a bed to sleep in at night. And I think that that's kind of, you know, you and I are kind of thinking the same way when it comes to bicycle touring, you know.
Absolutely.
We've earned the bed. You know, we've earned a bed and a shower. You know, I've stayed. You know, both of us have stayed at hostels, and we've stayed in really. We've done that already. So, you know,
it's funny you said that. It's funny you said that, Joe, because today I misspoke. I was talking to Sarah and I misspoke, and I said hostel and I meant hotel. And she goes, she puts her arm out and she goes, "I'm not saying any hostels." She's like, I'm done with hostels. And I'm like, I am too. I'm sorry, I meant hotels. It's so true. You're 100% right. That's what we're gonna do. It's gonna be low key, lightweight. You know, we're just gonna be riding, and we'll stop for a coffee and a scone because we're in Ireland, so we'll have a scone. And you know, we'll play it by ear. If the day's really nice, and you know, we'll have some tentative stuff. You know, we'll have some stuff planned, but we're gonna kind of like just have fun and just go ride bikes and
the way
in Ireland.
The way it
and
should
I think it's gonna be fun, and then after we complete our journey, our musical journey, you know, we're gonna go ahead and just return the bikes, or you know, get our regular clothes back on, as it were, and we're just gonna have fun. I have a ton of relatives, so I'm gonna go hang out with some relatives, and go eat some really good seafood. Ireland's got some great seafood, and fun stuff like that.
What months or what month are you thinking of doing this, or what time of the summer?
Don't know. It's going to definitely be in the summer, so probably July or August.
Yeah, there's nothing like learning about a country on a bicycle. About like visiting a country on a bike, and you smell it and you feel it, and the way you take in a country on a bicycle is very unique.
Yeah. So Joe, that's what I've got going on. Those are my two big stories. Bought Sarah an e-bike, and there was an ulterior motive because I want to coax her into going to Ireland with me and doing a very chill, fun, adventurous north to south tour of Ireland by bike. But tell me what you got going on, man. I've been talking too much.
No, I do have a question. So are you thinking about, it sounds like you're thinking about renting bikes there? Was that the plan, or were you thinking about traveling with your bikes?
Well, right now my thinking is this, and this is based, on some experience. So I'd like to bring my bike. So I have that new bike, that Domane, which I'm enjoying. So I'd like to bring my bike for various reasons we could talk about. And I think it makes more sense to rent an e-bike for Sarah locally in Ireland and not travel with her bike. One, because it's super heavy, as a lot of e-bikes are, and it just doesn't feel practical. Plus, there's the what is it? The current, the electricity difference. Charging that sucker, and I know there's converters and stuff, but I was just thinking, I want to nail down a very solid place that will set us up with a really good, e-bike, and I'll do my research, and I have some friends over there and family, so I think we can nail that down. But that's kind of the answer to your question. Is I'm going to probably bring my bike, and she can we'll rent one for her there, and then when we're done with the ride, we'll return her bike, and I'll just package mine up, and I'll keep it at one of my relatives, and then we'll fly out of Shannon or Dublin on our last day, and that'll be it. So that's right now what we're kind of thinking.
How exciting, Danny! That sounds like a lot of fun. That sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah. And it's
so
just the planning process and all the stuff that you have ahead of you. Bikepacking.com. There are a bunch of sites that would probably be fun for you to check out. There's also a site called Warm Showers, which is kind of an interesting site that you might want to check out.
Is that
yes.
What kind of site are we talking about?
Yeah, well, Danny, no, but they're people that open up their homes to people that are traveling,
it's a .org site, so we're safe.
Yes,
okay.
you are.
Warmshowers.org.
Yeah. I've seen some, I follow a lot of vloggers, a lot of bike vloggers. And the warm, a lot of them will use the warm showers to stay at. Usually it's a room, like a room. They make a room available, shower, that kind of thing. But in some cases, some of these warm shower locations, they're are incredible. They're people's homes, but they're incredible homes. You get a little bit of everything, and interestingly, it seems. What seems very cool is that that a lot of these people along the way are people that tour themselves or are kind of world travelers who enjoy having fellow world travelers. So the exchange, the exchange is it's almost a cultural exchange as well as just a place to stay. People are very welcoming, and they've been in that situation. They just like to share stories and gather around a large table and
kindred souls and good community.
Yeah.
So is this similar to the couch surfing phenomenon, or is this a little bit different?
I think it's a little higher. I think it's a little nicer than the couch surfing because it's I think you have to be a member of the organization. I think you have to join. So there's a little bit of a vetting process, and so it's not just people bouncing around and being bums. It's more of a it seems like it has a little bit more of a cultural exchange aspect to it than just a Airbnb type thing. So
right.
Yeah, it's something that I was hoping to explore a little bit as well.
Yeah. No, that sounds really cool, man. I bookmarked these. I want to check these out. This looks really fun.
Before we got on to warm showers, you asked me what was going on with me. What is going on with me? All hell's broken loose at the bike shop. So we're just busy. The season's kind of kicked in. And, from now till September, October, it's going to be, it's busy. It'll be busy. It's only going to get busier from here on. And, so just kind of getting back into the bike shop groove right now.
Do you feel, Joe, may I ask you, do you feel like, this is obviously like bike shop in Chicago is like, this is it, right? Like, this is where you're going to crush it. You're going to probably make most of your profits, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
Do you feel ready? Do you feel energized? Do you feel stoked? Do you feel like you're welcome, like open arms, like bring it, like bring all of that? Like, how are you feeling at the moment?
My approach right now is, we're going to do what we can. We have settled into a certain rhythm over the last 2 years. We are in the third year of having to do having to offer only essential services for the most part, and I think that this is going to be the most challenging year for the bike shops. I think this is a really scary time for a lot of bike shops because the last 2 years have been, we've been really busy. People have been making money, but I think that this will be I just sense that at the end of this season, we're going to lose a lot of bike shops, a lot of independent bike shops, a lot of medium-sized, small to medium-sized bike shops because of over ordering, because they didn't plan properly, because they didn't anticipate that this bike boom was going to end at some point. Maybe getting a little, just not realizing what was coming. I'm getting a sense from talking to friends in the business, bike reps, bike reps especially, because they travel to bike shops. These independent reps will visit, these guys that have a territory, 6, 7, 8 states, Midwest states, they're traveling to every little bike shop in these states. And I always ask them, I'm like, hey, what's this? What do you see out there? What's happening out there that I don't see because I don't go to the bike shops? What do you sense out there? And a lot of them have seen bike shops with a lot of inventory, where bikes are starting to arrive. And the bike companies, traditionally the bike companies, if you ordered bicycles, they would give you, depending on how big the order was, minimum 60 days, in some cases 120 days, so 4 months to pay for those bicycles. 3 to 4 months was pretty typical on bigger orders to pay for those bikes, which meant you had the bulk of the summer to sell bikes, to sell those bikes and then have to pay the bike company. Well, in the last couple of years, a lot of these bike companies have gone to cash. It's been a cash sale. You had to pay for these bikes up front because the bike companies were having to pay cash to the factories to get these bikes manufactured. That's just how the business was running. There used to be terms given to the bike companies to get their bikes produced. They lost those terms, and so the bike shops lost the credit that the bike companies were able to extend. And so if I wanted to order, let's say, $10,000 worth of bikes, either I had to come up with $10,000 cash or put it on a credit card. And over the last couple of years, well, the demand of bikes was so high that, it was okay to take in $10,000 worth of bikes because within a month you could sell $10,000 worth of bikes, no problem, because there were no bikes and people were buying whatever you had in the shop. It was a sure sale. Well, this year things have kind of changed. There's a little bit of inventory that's been built up, and so that bike sale is no longer given. That bike that's sitting in the shop might sit around. And we're having a cold. The winter hasn't gone away. Our spring is kind of off to a slow start here in the Midwest with the rain and the cold. So people are, there are bike shops sitting on a lot of inventory right now. A lot of those kind of all sorts of bikes right now, because there are bikes. There are some bikes to go around. And so I'm a little nervous about what's going on out there right now.
Yeah, I mean, the business in a way that I don't, but in a way that makes, I try to keep in touch on a macro level, what's going on with the bike industry. And one thing I have heard is there can be this like big drop, this big surge, like all of a sudden, the bikes come in, the inventory, the parts come in, everything comes in, and I can see some of these shops being overwhelmed and, just finding it like a impossible kind of task, right? To deal with all of that new inventory. Does that sound right?
Yeah. Well, more so than just dealing with the actual inventory is the fact that these bills are coming due. There are people in arrears now. They're not getting, they don't have 120 or 100 or they don't have 3 or 4 months to pay for it. They've got to pay for it. In some cases, they're either paying for it right up front or they're paying for it in 30 days. And so if they don't turn all that inventory in 30 days, then they're out cash. And some of these places, some of these shops are, they don't have the cash to pay for that. Most shops probably don't have that kind of money sitting around to pay a $25,000 bill,
I see.
So they're kind of, their credit cards are maxed out right now. The season hasn't really kicked off. We're starting to get into it's a tight spot for a lot of bike shops right now.
Right.
They've got a lot of cash out. They don't have a lot of cash coming in. They're kind of stuck right now. There's not a lot of cash flow.
And just like a real world check, like today was opening day for MLB, and it was like what, in the 30s?
Mm-hmm.
I mean.
Yeah, snowing.
It's like the weather is snowing. Like in Chicago, it's like the weather hasn't been amazing yet. We've had a couple of nice days here and there, but I'm kind of I fear we may be going from winter to summer, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. And I think and I think a lot of bike shops over the winter, a lot of shops have been buying things. You've been kind of hoarding parts and repair parts and things like that. So you already have a lot of cash out, a lot of things on your credit cards, just because you wanted that stuff, on hand. And the money isn't coming in yet. And yet the product is starting to come in. So I think, and now some of these bike shops are starting to have to maybe even turn bikes away. But over the last 6 months, the bike companies have made you sign, in some cases, sign paperwork that says you cannot if you've ordered the bikes, you have to take them. You have to take the bikes. You cannot cancel these orders anymore. Which, though, over the last 2 years, I could order 500 bikes, but I would only see 25 bikes come in or something like that. That was kind of the norm. And so I think a lot of shops got into this bad habit of just ordering, everything, every bike that they saw in the catalog. They were ordering tons of them, knowing that they would only get a certain amount of them. And over the last 6 months or so, the bike companies have said, "Hey, if you've got these, this is your chance. If you've got these bikes on order, you've got to commit to them, or and you've got to take them." Once they show up, you can't cancel them. And I think we're seeing that a lot of bike shops signed that paperwork, and now they're in a bit of a jam. So
it seems to me that the bike shop business is kind of crazy. There's a lot of like risk taking in a way, and there's like it's kind of a crapshoot. Like I don't know. Please correct me or inform me, but like if I'm a bike shop, like. Yeah, I mean, pandemic aside, but like just even in normal times, like if you take X number of bikes from whatever brand, and you don't sell all of them, I mean, or, people's tastes change and whatever, like, I mean, it just sounds like an inherently pretty tricky business. Am I wrong? Or
no, definitely, it's always been a very tricky business.
Is that in part, Joe, why you aren't, you're not like beholden to one brand? Like you sell a number of brands. Is that partly why you do that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, especially let's say in the case of Specialized, there was one of the brands that I looked at when I was opening the bike shop. When you're dealing with one of the big brands, Trek Specialized, right? When I say big brands, those are the two that I'm thinking of for sure.
Right.
You're really locked in with one of those brands, because of their demands of the shop, what you have to buy from them, a certain percentage of bikes, and then a percentage of all the rest of the stuff that they make, including tires and computers and clothing and accessories. So that by the time you meet their requirements of bikes and accessories, you really have no money left to do anything else. I mean, if you're kind of a modest shop or a small shop, there's nothing left. You can't, even if you want to sell, let's say, cat-eye computers, you don't have money left, and you've already got a ton of Specialized computers you have to sell because you have to buy a ton of cat-eye computers or Specialized computers to sell. So, it leaves very little room for anything else, and that's why you see these, even an independent store that does business with Specialized looks like a Specialized store because they make so many demands of that dealer that it doesn't really leave a lot of room for anything else. Same thing goes with Trek. You have to buy, if you're going to buy their bikes, you got to buy all of the stuff that goes along with Trek. All the branded Trek stuff.
So yeah, that's insightful. So if you're, let's just say hypothetically, maybe this isn't even realistic, but let's say hypothetically you just want to place an order for 10 bikes from, let's just say, Trek.
Mm-hmm.
So you're like, I want 10 Trek hybrids or 10 intro level road bikes or whatever. Can you just place that order, or are you saying they actually are like, no, you have to have the apparel? Gear,
yeah.
Really?
Oh,
wow,
yeah.
I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there are companies that I do businesses with that I can just order the 10 bikes, right? I can order the 10 bikes that I want and that I will sell at my store. Of course, their opening order and they have like a threshold that you have to meet per year to be a dealer, but it's nowhere near what a Trek or a Specialized is. What I would have to buy from some of the companies that I do business with is what I would have to buy in helmets with Trek or Specialized, let alone bikes and all the rest. So, I don't know I'm not current with what the demands of a Trek or a Specialized, to open one of those stores, but I would guess that it's it's quite a bit these days, Whereas some of the smaller independent or, just smaller bike companies that I deal with, their requirements are not nearly what some of what Trek or Specialized would ask of me. Companies are different. The bike companies are all a little bit different in the way that they do business. But I tend to do business with companies that will allow me to pick the product that will do well for me in my shop versus just companies that kind of drop the hammer on you and say you got to take all this stuff or you can't sell our product. So
there's I feel like we could do like a series of episodes, a series of podcasts on this. Like there's so much I want to know about the bike business, like just bike shop 101. Like I just want to know, like, how does it all work? Like I feel like I know a lot about bike shops, but I also know nothing. Like, I want to know, like, for example, like you're a bike shop, like if you are like, hey, Surly, I want to sell your bikes, like how does it work? Like, do you have to prove you're a dealer? Do they have to verify you? Can you just order willy-nilly, like whatever you want? Like we want 3 of these bikes or 5 of those, or we don't want your swag or your helmets or this or that. Like, I'd love to know.
Every company is different. right now, no bicycle company is doing normal business. I can't call a bicycle company and order a specific bike right now. That doesn't really exist in the bike industry at the moment. So, everything is I think everybody's rethinking the way that this is going to be done in the coming years. So I am actually very interested in seeing where everything is going to be at in the coming year or two, because I don't think we're going back to the way that it was before.
Yeah. So having said all of that, how stoked are you for the spring, should it come, and the summer? How stoked are you for the new season? This is your time to shine, right? Rise and grind.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm excited. I'm cool. I'm like, I guess it's just kind of a calm feeling. I'm not super excited for it. I think this is kind of a transitional year for me at the shop. I'm already thinking forward into winter and next season. This year, I'm kind of looking at it more as getting through it, servicing my existing customer base. Trying to get their bikes fixed. I have conceded the fact that I'm not going to sell a ton of bikes. I'm going to sell whatever comes in, whatever I'm able to get. But I'm not getting myself into kind of projects. I'm not gonna scour every vendor to try to scrap a bike together for someone. My advice to to everybody out there right now is that if you have a bike, if you're thinking about buying a bike right now, I wouldn't. If you have something, if you have a bike that's working for you right now, ride what you have. Get it fixed if it's working. If it needs a tune-up or something, and otherwise, a fine bike, ride that for the next season. And then in the fall and the winter, you can start thinking about building your dream bike. But this year is still going to be kind of a tough year to kind of build a dream bike or get the specific bike that you want, in the color that you want and the size that you want. You're still going to have to be very open to whatever's available, if there's something available for you.
Yeah. And I know we talked on the pod previously about that, and that was certainly my case. I was looking for a bike, I couldn't find bikes, and finally located like literally two actual bikes in like the Midwest, and I was able to get one pretty nearby. I got really lucky. But point being, I think that's what I'm seeing from the other side too. It's just like, if I had a bike and it was, doing me good, I would just stay on it for now. And if I had the means and the fortune, so to speak, to get my hands on something new that I really wanted, I'd go for it. But at the same time,
yeah, I mean, I
don't know, it's still tough out there.
Yeah, if it's the bike that if you've kind of happened into the situation where it's the bike that you want, in the color that you want, in the size that I wouldn't compromise. So, like, if you don't need a bike, don't just buy whatever's available right now. It's never a good way to buy a bike. It shouldn't be that way. You shouldn't be just taking whatever is available. Unless you absolutely need a bike and you don't have any other choice, or, you need to get that ride in this year and your bike got stolen and that's what the shop has. But otherwise, fix the bike that you're riding. If you have that option, you just, get it tuned up, get through this season. And then, I would say by the fall, going into the winter, you'll have a clearer view of what lies ahead for the bike industry, and I think you'll be able to find what you're looking for. My guess is that there is going to be a glut of bikes in the next in a year from now. There's going to be so many bikes, because these bikes are, in some cases, they're on the water or waiting at a port. There's tons and tons and tons of bikes that are waiting to come in.
Just sitting there, yeah.
Yeah, and there's bikes that are partially built already, just waiting for a handful of components to finish them off. And as soon as those components show up, those bikes are going to be completed, and they're going to start coming this way. And, as we talked about before, bike shops being in trouble right now and kind of cash poor and a lot of money out. I think a lot of those bikes are going to be turned down. I think they're just going to be rerouted. I think it's just going to be my guess is it's going to be a mess in the bike industry, which means it's going to be a good thing for the consumer, and that you're probably going to be able to find a good deal on a bike in the next year. So and I also think that a lot of people maybe bought the bike that their second or third choice of bike in the last year and a half. Not necessarily the bike they wanted, and in the next year, the bike that they wanted is going to become available, and that bike is going to go on the used bike market. And so there's going to be great deals to be had in the used bike market as well. So, I think there's going to be a lot of that. So, it's going to be a while till the dust settles in the bike, in the bike industry as a whole. But in the bike market, it's going to be even crazier over the next year. So that's why I'm just kind of sitting on the sidelines right now. And if it's a bike that I believe, if they're bikes that I actually want to sell, then I'm taking them. That's what I have on order right now. It's only stuff that I would sell, whether there was a crisis in bikes or not. So,
Switch gears real quick, Joe. Do you want a quick recap on some racing or what?
Yes. So there was a big race. It was the Tour de Flandres.
Yeah, baby. Not to be confused with Ned Flanders. That's a cartoon character. It
was very, actually a very exciting finish to that race.
Wasn't it though?
Exciting and some would say big mistake there by maybe the strongest rider. Yeah, maybe the strongest. Yeah. What some people thought was the strongest rider in the race.
It was a wild race. It was very exciting. One of the better editions of recent years for sure. There have been some good ones lately, but that was a really good one. But yeah, the first big classic for cobblestones, we had Milan-San Remo. So now we have the second monument, Tour of Flanders. And as you said, Pogačar was pretty much the strongest rider in the race, right? And Mathieu van der Poel was up there, maybe just a tad behind Pogačar in terms of strength. So super long race, 260 plus clicks, and battle, great racing. Wout van Aert was out, but we had van der Poel, we had Pogačar, and we had this elite front group, and came down to a sprint, and van der Poel takes out his second Tour of Flanders. It's a little bit interesting in the sprint because it was van der Poel and Pogačar, the two up coming into the Flamme Rouge, the last K, and then the three chasers basically caught them in the last closing meters. So we had a very dramatic come together sprint situation, and Dylan Van Barle was second. That was really cool. I love Dylan. I got to meet him when I was at the Tour. He was on Cannondale for a long time, or for a couple of years anyway, and he ends up getting second. Pogačar makes what I think Robbie McEwen called a junior, rookie mistake. He got closed out of the sprint, kind of sandwiched, and wasn't able to open up. And people were saying, "Hey, man, Van der Poel is going to beat you in a sprint probably, but if you lead it out and go long, you might have a chance." Not only did he lose, first place, he lost second and he lost third. He didn't get the even on the podium. So it was a very interesting race. It was a great race. The fans were out. The Belgian Super Bowl. I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was super fun, and it was cool to see Van der Poel win because I felt like he really had to earn that one. He came back from some big injuries this off season with his back issues, and his dramatic crash at the Mountain Bike Worlds Olympics, last year, and that exacerbated his back problems, and he had all these issues. He quit cyclocross early and all this kind of stuff. And he's only raced a handful of days this year, but his palmares, his resume is already looking insane. He got like second or third at Milan-San Remo. He won a couple other races. He won Flanders now, and I think he has like 10 racing days so far in his legs, and it's already like near mid-April. But I love the race. I thought it was a ton of fun. I just love the whole, like, as I get older, I love the whole, like, around the race kind of scene, like the fans, the color,
the circus, Danny. The circus.
There's always goofy shit that goes on. Mm-hmm. There's quirky things that happen. And anyway, real quick, just looking ahead, like we have what's funny is, I think traditionally we had Flanders, and then we had Paris-Roubaix the week after.
Second Sunday of April.
Yeah. So now we have the mix up, and I wasn't even like fully aware of it until recently. So we have Amstel Gold this coming Sunday, and then we have Roubaix next Sunday, the Sunday after. Correct. So that's been a little bit weird. Like, I'm trying to wrap my head around it a little bit. Like, I'm really used to Flanders, Roubaix.
Yep.
And I'm just kind of like, wait a second, like.
Well,
Roubaix
being changed because of the French elections.
Only in France would that happen, right? The Belgians would be like, no way are we changing.
Yeah, they would have canceled the election.
French are like, oh.
Yeah.
So it's just amazing, and we're in the thick of it. I just wanted to give it a shout out in case anyone who's like listening for our expert bike racing analysis. I use all that in quotes, obviously, but no, seriously, like so much fun. I feel like this weekends now are great. It's like one of the highlights. I love getting out, riding my bike, having a good brunch or dinner with my girl, and then also watching some classic racing. And it's just a good time right now.
I think, Danny, I was thinking about this in the shower the other day.
All right. Was it a warm shower?
It was a warm shower, Danny.